Hello and welcome everyone, my name is Meepolis and this is Literally Graphic. And today we are going to be looking at 3 nonfiction books in a developing series that isn't well linked in Goodreads, but I guess is the, quote, quick and easy guide series from Limerence Press, ? Namely, a quick and easy guide to consent, to queer and trans identities, and to they, them pronouns. There's also a volume about disability and sexuality that came out in May, which also sounds very exciting, but I have not been able to get my hands on it yet. As far as warnings go, besides frank talk about sexuality to different amounts by book, there is only one page in the consent book that involves a diagram of disembodied body parts that might be involved in different kinds of sex. As a series for young people potentially just discovering sexuality and gender, everything is pretty light and fluffy, especially visually, while still covering a lot of nuance. Things are covered in a way that strips down a lot of the intensity, stigma, and fear that was at least part of my coming-of-age story in a conservative family of the aughts. Starting off with the Guide to Consent, I got my hands on it via dipping my toe back into EArcs through NetGalley. It's currently set to be published in October of this year by Limerence Press with writing and art by Isabella Rodman, and grayscale, I don't think it's going to be color even in the final edition, by Luke Howard. The Goodreads description of this volume is, how do you tell someone you want to do stuff with them? How do you ask if they want to do stuff with you? How do you know what stuff you want to do with each other? And enter Sergeant Yes Means Yes from the Consent Cavalry, a beacon of clarity in a fuzzy minefield of questions. Sarge drops in on a diverse range of folks, deciding whether to engage in sexual activity in this short and fun comic guide to communicating what you want, don't want, and how you want it. With wit and charm, Sarge also includes tips on what affirmative consent looks like, advocating for what you want, and setting boundaries that honor your comfort and safety. The result is a positive resource illustrating how easy it really is to respect each other's bodies and desires. About sex, rather than necessarily sexuality, this book did include a lot of diverse representation when it came to different kinds of gender across the spectrum, sexuality, and race. I would have been interested in more biodiversity and disability representation, but there was some of each, and disability and sexuality is the focus of another whole book, so hopefully things will feel more balanced overall. Short, this book still managed to be very thorough. We cover not only what could be seen as the basics of consent, but also cover issues like what is sex, how to frame consent positively, intoxication, manipulation, age of consent, kinks, and informed consent. There's also a short section on dealing with rejection, an extensive bibliography to find out more, and a worksheet to help all of us figure out what sorts of things we consent to or not. Next up, I wanted to highlight the first quick and easy guide I came across, which was on they, them pronouns. I had checked it out of the library a couple times in the hopes of talking about it, but it, even combined with the next book, never felt like there was quite enough to dedicate a video to. But here we are, so yay! This particular guide was a team effort by Archie Bongiovanni and Tristan Jimerson. The Goodreads description is, Archie, a snarky genderqueer artist, is tired of people not understanding gender-neutral pronouns. Tristan, a cisgender dude, is looking for an easy way to introduce gender-neutral pronouns to his increasingly diverse workplace. The longtime best friends team up in a short and fun comic guide that explain what pronouns are, why they matter, and how to use them. They also include what to do if you make a mistake, and some tips and tricks for those who identify outside the binary to keep themselves safe in this binary-centric world. A quick and easy resource for people who use they, them pronouns and people who want to learn more. And just like the Guide to Consent, this volume also focuses on making the topic at hand as stress-free as possible. We will all mess up at some time, but the important things here are respect and to keep trying. While pronouns and gender are not necessarily always the same, I guess obviously the two are closely intertwined, and that this is the main focus of this addition to the series. It's also largely framed as a conversation between the two creators, who both appear to be white, but there's still some racial diversity, although nothing about ability versus disability. Finally, to wrap up, I picked up a quick and easy guide to queer and trans identity by Mandy G. and J.R. Zuckerberg. The description is as follows: guiding you through the basics of the LGBT plus world, covering essential topics like sexuality, gender identity, coming out, and navigating relationships. This guide explains the spectrum of human experience through informative comics, interviews, worksheets, and imaginative examples. A great starting point for anyone curious about queer and trans life, and helpful for those already on their own journey. Certainly not an easy topic to summarize, even in 96 undersized pages, but this book does it with an easy grace that is extremely playful. Once again, tackling difficult topics in a calming way that I think is a great addition to the discourse in dealing with some ideas that can become very abstract. I really appreciate the creative and fantastical way that Mandy J. and J.R. Zuckerberg took to explain them. I could definitely see this guide needing a reread more than the others, but I do feel like more can be extracted from the book when meditated on. Almost like the Christian Bible, in my humble opinion, on a smaller scale. There's also a bibliography and some fun activity pages in the back. Again, much diversity is had except in ability versus disability. Really glad they did publish that book that I hope I can pick up sometime soon. I rated all 3 volumes 5 out of 5 stars. Bye y'all, keep reading, and resist white supremacy. And as always, Literally Graphic is recorded on the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and Anishinaabe people, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Huron-Wendat Nation. I live here because of British colonization, Indigenous genocide, and more geographically specific, Treaty 13. Also known as the Toronto Purchase, which was finalized in 1805 between representatives of the Crown and certain Mississauga peoples. This treaty was a lie and has since been broken many times over. Saying so reflects only my own small steps towards knowing the truth and does nothing for reconciliation.